Greetings, everyone. I want to share with you guys this iris I analyzed, just to kind of give you an idea of how we as iridologists, start connecting dots and, pull information together, to complete an assessment. Now, there's different things that can be provided, in addition to just doing the assessment that will help, create a bigger picture of someone's, health status. So, what I'm doing here today is, like I said, I'm going to go through and show you guys some of the signs and the markings that I, saw in this iris, and how I correlated it with, in particular, what this client provided with her blood work. And more specific, her metabolic panel was where I found some of the things that I, tied to what was going on with what I saw, in the iris itself. Just off top, there's only two eye colors. There's brown and there's blue irises. And everything else, which we call mixed or biliary eyes, are a derivative of those two iris colors. The pigment, the melanin combination, however intense or deep those pigments are when they're mixed, determines your greens, your grays, your hazels, things of that nature. But there's only two true eye colors, which are brown and blue. And so, another thing to take note of when we speak about, doing iridology, one thing I just found so fascinating is that when we look in someone's eyes, we're looking at four generations of markings and signs in the iris. And these irises are like our fingerprints, which is why we can use them biometrically, like, to unlock our cell phones, or going through the airport, they scan the iris because our irises are unique to us. So it's very interesting to know that we can look back through four generations and see some of the same markings in the irises of our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, and some of these things that we look at are, can be genetically, hereditary to our family. So that's why we as iridologists, we ask questions, and sometimes it seems like we get invasive with the questions, but the questions definitely help us, create a bigger picture and help us to also, suggest better things, more accurate, more things structured to you specifically, in regards to helping you on your health journey, your healing journey. So with that said, the brown iris is the most predominant color, period, in all humans. So I'm not even going to say most, all of the clients that I have seen have all had brown hematogenic irises. So we are called brown hematogenics. So with that, there comes certain potential tendencies that we as brown-eyed people have just before we even get into seeing any signs, markings, or anything. Just based off of our eye color, there are certain tendencies that we have toward health, issues. So a few of those tendencies are thickened blood, blood issues, anemia. We also have a tendency to burn through our nutrients and our minerals very quickly. So we have issues. We can have issues. Sustaining nutrients and minerals that we get, whether it be from our from supplements or from our food, from our diet. We also have a tendency to have bowel disturbances, in our intestinal areas. So, elimination, constipation, or elimination, peristalsis may not, be very strong enough to help us move our bowels as we should. So, and then we also have a potential for glandular issues. So when we talk about the glands, we're talking about all of them. The pituitary, the thymus, the pancreas, the adrenal glands, the thyroid. So we have a potential tendency to have issues in those areas, and also circulation. I forgot about the circulation. So we also have circulation tendencies, which can impact a lot of things. So we're talking about nerve, brain, heart, because if the blood's not circulating to certain areas of the body, then those may be areas that are deficient in a lot of things. So circulation is also, something we see in brown hematogenics. And these are just based off eye color. So we haven't even talked about, any getting into any signs or markings that we actually see in the iris. So just by that alone, those are things that we can take a look at and have practices implemented into supporting those areas of the body just because the potential is there. So with that, I want to get into my assessment of this iris. And one of the first things that I look at, this is a Black woman, and this is her right iris. And one of the first things that I look at is resiliency. And I'm going to switch to her left eye because I got a pretty good picture of her left iris that I think is better. So for this, with the one of the first things I look at is resiliency. When we talk about resiliency, we're talking about how tightly woven are the fibers in her eyes? How closely knit are they? Are there a lot of openings? Are there separations? Are there a lot of lacuna? And this particular woman, she has a beautiful brown iris, and there are not very many separations whatsoever in this iris. So that tells me it's an indication of, to say, this may be a person who may not get sick often. And if she does get sick, she probably has the potential to recover very easily, so she's one who may not stay, sick for very long if she does get sick. And that's what the resiliency tells me. So that's why I like looking to see, how resilient of an iris does this person have. And then, we start going into things like the collarette and the nutritive zone. And I'm going to take myself off screen so that I can, zoom in and out and flick through some of these photos so that you can see everything I'm pointing to. Plus, I'm going to go through my analysis form that I took on this woman and go through my notes so that I can, stay on track and go through them, as I saw, the different signs and the notes that I took in regards to what I saw. So with that, I am going to start with her. Well, it doesn't matter left or right. When we talk about the nutritive zone, we have one nutritive zone, and basically, which encapsulates our intestines, our stomach area, and our nervous system. So it's different than looking at a left and right iris as it relates to our organs, because we have a left breast, a right breast, a left lung, a right lung, you know what I'm saying? So we have different things like that. But with the nutritive zone, of course, we have different areas of our intestinal tract and things of that nature, but we still only have one nutritive zone. And when I say nutritive zone, we look at the iris, and we're looking at the iris from the pupil out. So from the pupil out to the edge of the iris is zones 1 through 7. So within the nutritive zone, we're looking at zones 1 and 2. And what borders the nutritive zone is the collarette. So we're going to start talking about the collarette, and we're going to talk about the collarette first, because the collarette is a very important region, because it's like it's our nervous system, if you will. It's like it encapsulates our our autonomic nervous system. So her collarette, this is her left eye, but her collarette is, if you can notice, and what I'm talking about is this identified outline here. Her collarette is thick and ropey, but it's also absent in what we call intermittent in certain areas. So, and then when we look at the collarette, we also want to look at the collarette in relation to how far or close away from the pupil it is. Ideally, we would like to see the collarette being like 1/3 of the way, up away from the pupil, toward the edge of the iris. Her collarette is very close to her iris, okay? To her pupil. And that is an indication of someone, when we see this type of combination within, individuals, we see that these are people who, have poor mineral absorption. They may have digestional cramping, and they also they may burn energy very quickly. So they have excessive energy burning. So again, that's already, speaking to some of the potential tendencies I spoke about earlier in regards to being a brown hematogenic iris and us burning through our nutrients quickly, us having poor mineral absorption, and also just the intestinal cramping basically being part of our digestion. So there's three things right there that we already covered twice. One with the fact that she has a smaller collarette in relation to her pupil size, as well as just being a brown hematogenic iris. So on an emotional note, we can get into emotional iridology, which is another area of iridology all by itself that I'm definitely seeking and looking to study that part of iridology to augment and add to the constitutional iridology, which I'm already certified in. So on an emotional note, this sign that we see here indicates, this being a smaller, her having a smaller collarette indicates a person who is not, who does not really readily express themselves, but they would rather hold on to their feelings. So more of an introvert, if you will. So, they also in that, saying that they may also hold their bowels. So instead of releasing when they have the urge to eliminate, they hold their bowels. So think about that. You know what I'm saying? Someone, we see this sign, someone who is very, very tight, you know what I'm saying? Very, very, rigid, holding on to their bowels, holding on to their feelings, not expressing, things of that nature. This all is all relative, so that, and like I said, the emotional iridology is a whole, another aspect of iridology, but very, very interesting, very interesting. So we also noticed that her collarette is kind of, like I said, it's thick and ropey in areas, and then it's intermittent, and it just kind of disappears in other areas. So that's indicative of excessive nerve energy. The thickness of her collarette indicates that she has excessive nerve energy in certain areas. Okay, and so with that, the energy there, the minerals that we have that are used to buffer acids, they just are quickly consumed. So again, she's burning through minerals very quickly, in which, when that happens, it can lead to an acidic lymphatic environment, which can also lead to weakened immunity. Now, we already see that she's a resilient iris, but we also still want to pay attention to the fact that if she is acidic, which, this can be an indication of that because of the excessive mineral burn, you know what I'm saying? It can still cause her lymphatic system to stagnate and also cause her to start having weakened immunity. So, with that, we want to pay attention. Now, where the sporacity comes in, where the collarette starts to disappear, we want to take a look at what organs are adjacent to where this, disappearance occurs. And what we see here is, again, I spoke in a previous video about the looking at the iris like a clock. We look at it like a clock. And if we thinking about the clock, we're looking between where it disappears. This is probably about 8 and 10 o'clock. We're looking at between 8 and 10 o'clock. The organs that are in those, in that area, we're talking about the thyroid, the liver, the pancreas, and we're also talking in this area about the upper vertebrae. So there's an indication, in the iris that represents our whole vertebrae, and this is around the upper vertebrae. So if we start thinking about what we already, know, and what I mentioned earlier about just being a brown hematogenic and having to have us having potential for glandular issues, we're over here already talking about thyroid, pancreas, with the addition of the liver as well. So, that's more confirmation of just being a brown hematogenic, brown eye hematogenic, and then, seeing this intermittent collarette, which is absent here in the areas of those glandular organs. So also, this right here, like I said, let me get my little square, where the upper vertebrae is. So I asked her, again, we want to look at what's in the area where the collarette's missing. So this lacuna and this opening here, I asked about it because it's in the vertebrae area. So I asked her, questions like, is she having, or has she had any type of, neck pain, back pain, any injuries to that area of her body? And she basically let me know a few years ago she was in a car accident, and she hurt her neck and her upper back, her shoulders, her up in her shoulder area. So that was interesting to find out, based off of a sign, that I saw in her iris. So, confirmation, more dots connected. And then also what we see, so getting back to the nutritive zone. So this is the collarette, and again, it borders zones 1 and 2. Zones 1 and 2 we call the nutritive zone, and that is this area right around the pupil, right outside of the pupil. So what we see here is this indicates how our digestion and our absorption and our nervous system react. So right now, one thing we can't see, and I'm gonna switch gears real quick. That is not the picture I wanted to have up. That is her other left, a picture of her left eye. So what I want to show you, let me get back to that, is pigment. One thing we can't see in brown hematogenic irises is color as far as pigment. This is a blue iris, obviously, and what we see here is we can see yellows, like, we can see rust colors, brown, you know what I'm saying? We can see different colors, and these colors indicate different things. So, the brown color, the yellows, the browns, the rust colors, these all indicate hepatic and blood, pancreas disorders. So there's also, I have another photo here, and you can see this is a gorgeous iris, but it has those colors. You see these colors, the browns, the yellows, the rust, the oranges. All of these colors indicate something. And this iris specifically is a iris that is having some liver. The brown colors, the rust, the orange, liver, blood disorders, probably some blood sugar issues, because I can see her collar red, and she has lacuna, large look. I don't know if this is a she or he. I just got these photos off the internet, but this person has large lacunas in the 4 areas that indicate the pancreas. So I would definitely say that this person is potentially dealing with some blood sugar disorders. But the whole point of this is the colors. We see these colors in irises that are not brown. So, however, when we get back to our brown iris, we can't see these colors. We can't see these colors in the irises, in the iris that we're looking at now. But what we can see when we look in brown irises, and I'm trying to find my eye that I had up. What we can see in the in brown irises is lightening, and we can see darkening. So here we go. So we can see lightening and we can see darkening. The lightning in any iris, whether it's one of the irises like the irises we looked at, previously with the colors, or a brown hematogenic iris. Lightning indicates inflammation and irritation. Okay. Darkening, like the different pigment colors, you can go from the yellows to the reds to the browns to the oranges. But when we talk about like dark browns and, and oranges and things of that nature, those are signs of liver. No matter where they are in the iris, we see the lightning, we see light spots, we see dark spots. The dark spots, no matter where they are indication of liver, liver issues, liver deficiencies, liver detoxification, liver, intoxication. So, we can definitely see lightening and darkening. So when I look at this iris, and I see the lightning, and we're talking about the nutritive zone again, the zones 1 and 2. Her whole nutritive zone is lightened. So that tells me she's dealing probably most likely with some inflamed, digestive issues. Now, again, these things can be hereditary, but the fact that the signs are there indicates that the potential is high. And so that's where iridologists come in, and we ask the questions, and we ask, what's going on? How's your diet? How's your elimination? How, are you tired? Mineral. So we can see that, the deficiency, happening right there, with the irritation and inflammation. Now, when we look in this iris, we see, the lightning. I'm seeing some light spots in this area here. Of course, like I said, the whole thing is, lightened. But when we get over here, we're looking in the descending colon area. And I'm pointing this out for a few reasons because, there's other signs that indicate that there's something going on there because one, we see the lightning. Well, let's go back first. The first thing we know is that just based off of the potential tendencies of her being a brown-eyed hematogenic, she has a tendencies for bowel problems. So that's one thing. Then we see the lightning, number two, in this area, and which indicates inflammation or irritation in the descending colon. This area represents her descending colon area. So, and then three, we're going to look at, where's my little square? This here inside the collarette, because we still haven't come outside of the collarette yet. We're still inside this border. So this right here is called a collarette crypt. It's a darker opening, a smaller lacuna, a separation of fibers right there. And at 4 o'clock, again, we look at this like a clock. So we're around 4 o'clock, and that's around her descending colon area. So and it's also up against, the opposite side of it would be her pancreas, so we definitely, are looking at, some digestive issues, some inflammation, some constipation, things of that nature, just based off of these few signs that we've seen that, help to support each other in their nature. So bowel problems, elimination problems, inflammation, nutrient absorption, all of those things we can see just by looking at her collarette and then looking into the nutritizone itself. So again, so we see that collarette crypt at 4 o'clock in the descending colon, and then so I want to switch to her right eye only because we also see in her right eye at the same point at 4 o'clock in her right iris, she has another collarette crypt in her nutritive zone right there on the border of her collarette. So although this area of the nutritive zone represents her small intestine because this is in her right iris and we're in the left iris, this area represented her descending colon, we are still talking about the intestinal, the digestion, so this is also, something to look at. And it's interesting that she has this in both eyes in the same area. So that was interesting there. So but with that also, she is constipated. So the confirmation with that was that, I always ask my clients about their bowel movements, their elimination patterns, how often are they moving their bowels. She basically told me she can go days without moving her bowels, and that she, regularly on a regular basis, she at least goes once a day, but she can sometimes go, 2 and sometimes maybe 3 days without moving her bowels. So this woman is constipated, and we can see that. And, we asked the question and she's confirmed it. So, she has that cramping, that digestive cramping when she eats, so, those crypts in these areas, also indicate, like I said, because this sign is in very close proximity to the liver and the pancreas. This area, this 4 o'clock area, if you will, if we widen it out, because once we come out of the nutritive zone, that is the liver, that is the pancreas right here. So we're still getting confirmation of those just those potential tendencies we spoke about initially just from being a brown-eyed hematogenic. And this is a better picture in this right iris of the color. See these dark spots? So all of this darkening, these dark patches, this is all liver. This is all liver indicators, just her having, also, we will also want to look at the areas and what's in the areas there with the darkening, but the darkening itself, the fact that these are dark brown patches and spots, indicate some liver disturbances. So sticking with the right iris, now I want to look at, start going into some of the things that I noticed in the iris. So this is her right iris. And the first thing that I noticed is this blue circulatory ring. We call this a circulatory ring, this blue glowing type of ring around the iris. It does not always have to go all the way around the iris, but most times we see it just going completely around the iris, and it indicates a issue with circulation. Now, when we talk about circulation, we're talking about, blood not getting to certain areas. So if we're having circulation issues, the question would be, whether or not this individual has cold or numb extremities. And she's indicated that her feet are always cold. So she has cold feet all the time, meaning that that blood is not circulating properly and getting down to her feet to circulate back up. So if we to go back to the potential tendencies from being a brown eye hematogenic, circulation was one of those things. Now, when we talk about circulation in a different aspect too, we're talking about circulation to the heart, to the brain, to the lungs. So when we think about circulation, we want to look at that as a whole complete picture. But that's why we ask the questions: where are you possibly having those effects from circulation, poor circulation? So, and for her, it was her feet at this point, you know what I'm saying? So she has cold and numb feet. And we also look at, so another thing that I noticed in the eye is this, this white cloudiness, and we call this lipemic diathesis. So this white cloudiness we call lipemic diathesis, which is basically indication of fat in the blood. So if you will, what they call high cholesterol. So the thing with this is, if it's not, addressed through diet change or whatever have you, this cloudiness can start moving in toward the pupil, and it can also cover the pupil. So we're talking your glaucomas, your cataracts, and things of that nature. But we definitely want to pay attention to, when we see this, because this can also be genetic. This can also be something within the family. However, when we think about the things that we do as we come up, if we are not a cycle breaker, if we are not someone who has strayed away from the dietary practices, the lifestyle practices that we've come up with, all our lives, then most times we're still eating and living the same way that we have, that our parents did, our grandparents did. So if this is not addressed through diet and lifestyle changes, yes, this can definitely start getting worse and worse and affect, this person's vision. So definitely something we want to pay attention to. Next, I looked at, what I saw and pointed out were the contraction furrows. We call these contraction furrows. Sometimes you see this light, looks like a half moon right now because you can't see it going all the way around the iris, but these are considered stress rings. They call these stress rings. And I have not looked in a brown iris yet where I have not seen some degree of these rings in the iris stress. And so these stress rings. So when we see these, we think about a person who is, basically in a high stressful type of environment. Or let's just face it, us as Black people in general, our history is a stressful history. We have a stressful history as a people. So these can definitely be genetic, but a lot of times they are still something that we are just, and sometimes we don't think about the stress that we put ourselves under. This individual here, when asked about how relaxed, her relaxation practices, and is she under stress, her job, so we ask about, what you do for a living. This person, she indicated that her day job is very high stress, very deadline driven, so that she is always under the gun. So this is a person who is always under daily stress with, very little relaxation practices implemented in her daily life. So when we think about these contraction furrows, we definitely want to pay attention to, making suggestions to our clients about how they can relax and different things. And then also, high stress also lends itself to quicker mineral loss. So that's also something we talked about in the potential tendencies of a brown person, just losing minerals quickly. So also Also with contraction furrows, these indicate someone who holds tension in the body, the stress, the tightness, someone who pushes themselves to an extreme, an overachiever. And we're dealing with the emotional aspect again. And also with the pore elimination, pore skin elimination for that matter. So acne, eczema, things like that. So when we go back to the holding the tension, think about it. Now we're talking again about, remember the small collarette, and being close and tight to her pupil. This person's introvert. She's tight. She doesn't express. She doesn't release her bowels, and she's holding tension in her body. So this is all, it's all relative. It is all very relative. So these are things that, we may want to pay attention to when we suggest, different things that this person can do to start learning to relax. And then we looked at radial furrows. So I'm going to use my arrows. The arrows I'm using are not for pointing. They're more just kind of indicators of what I'm showing you. So these little lines that look like wheel spokes, they look like spokes on a wheel. We call those radial furrows. You know what I'm saying? So they span out. And radial furrows can also, we can have those in the nutritive zone as well, and they can extend out into what we call the ciliary zone, those other zones 3 through 7. So remember, zone 1 and 2 is the nutritive zone, and then everything else, to 7 is the ciliary zone. So these radial furrows, it indicates when, especially when they're in the nutritive zone, definitely indication that the nervous system needs some attention, and also that, there may be some toxins there, high amounts of toxins, and, the toxins in these areas, when we look at these folds, these are conditions created for parasites. Parasites love finding these folds and harboring and reproducing in these areas. So when I see radial furrows, first thing I think about are parasites. But we also want to look at, where are these radial furrows? What areas are these radial furrows in? So, not only do we, want to suggest, parasite cleanses, but we also want to look where they are. So in this particular woman's case, she has a radial furrow here about 5 o'clock and about 6:30. And these radial furrows, this right here, this is the vagina and the uterus area, and this one is the abdominal wall. So when I asked her questions about, has she had any, surgeries, any trauma to those areas and things of that nature, she, advised that her medical doctor diagnosed her with fibroids. So these two, signs here were, confirmation and, of the fibroid diagnosis that she received. So, me asking the questions about that, when I'm seeing something in these areas, the vagina, the uterus, the abdominal wall, lends itself to, confirming, about, the confirmation that, she has fibroids. So that was interesting. And then we see this one here in the at 9 o'clock. This is probably about 9 o'clock, and that is the lung, the breast, and the heart area. So, and this one actually extends out from. This is one of the ones that extends from the nutritive zone. So the colon as well. So we're talking about the colon. We're talking about the lungs. We're talking about the breast and the heart. And remember, we still deal with the circulatory ring. So the circulation issue. Now, again, blood, not getting to the heart, shallow breathing. She admits that she doesn't have asthma, but she is a shallow breather, where she finds herself having to stop and take deep breaths sometimes because she doesn't feel like she's taking full breaths, and, things of that nature. So, the lungs become affected, the breathing, the heart, the breast areas, so things of that nature. This is just very, very interesting to see how, these things can come together, and that these are great indicators of some things that may already be going on with the individual. And just through conversation, they give us the confirmation. So another thing that I saw in this iris, around here about, if we're looking at this about 3 o'clock, this whole area here, let me use the square. This whole area here, we're looking at this area here. This is her thyroid area. So this is the area that is basically in the thyroid field. So again, we go back to, the initial potential tendencies of having glandular issues as a brown eye hematogenic. So that's one. Then we have these signs and markings in the thyroid area. That's two. And also, if you notice, we have the darkening. There is darkening all in this area. So that is a darker area area, wherein, we need to pay attention to. So, more dots connected, more confirmation of things that need nurtured in this woman's body. So, and then the last thing I'm gonna look at in this, the last couple things is, excuse me, excuse me. So we also want to look at flattening in the pupil. We look at the pupil and we take a look at, the areas that may have some flattening. And what I see in this area, I see some flattening here. It looks like this is, and it's not totally in the middle, it's not totally in the bottom or the top. So it's kind of, we would call this superior temporal because it's in the top part, but it's toward the temple. And with superior temporal flattening, that's an indication of like poor blood and nerve supply to the head, her ears, her inner ear, things of that nature. So when asked the question if she has any type of problems with her ears or, her head, does she have headaches? She indicated that she suffers from migraines. So the flattenings are very important because these are, these can definitely get serious. But one good thing about the flattenings is that when you start nurturing what's involved with the flattenings, these you can definitely these can round back out. So that's one thing in the iris that can change. Everything else we saw when we saw the markings, these are going to be there. These markings are genetically there. They've been there for 4 generations. They'll be there whether she tends to her health or not. You know what I'm saying? So we will see these markings in our irises for 4 generations unless we start making lifestyle and dietary changes in order to change that. So, um, with that being said, the flattening part, what she can do with that was if she goes to a chiropractor already, or if she starts, seeing a chiropractor, the cerebral vertebrae for having migraines and things like that would be what needs to be adjusted. So C1 through C5 would be those vertebrae that a chiropractor would, pay attention to and adjust. And if she goes regularly, it may very well help her ease, those migraines. So what else, the last thing I'm going to look at in this iris is the sclera. So the sclera is the white part of the iris. And this is another aspect of iridology that is very, very intriguing, and it is very, very in my opinion necessary to augment and to couple with just the constitutional iridology that we look at when we look at the iris. The sclera is the white part of the iris, and we look at the blood vessels and also, just different markings and pigments that can be in that area as well, in the whites of the eyes. So for this particular client, I looked in her sclera, and what I'm noticing, when we start talking about like this brown, see this brownness going up the top and around the iris there, they tell us that this is normal and it's an extension of the pigment from our iris. So it's just extra melanin that has seeped out into the whites of the iris. So this is considered a normal sign. However, when we start getting out here, when that brown pigment starts getting out in these areas, like, over here, and even down here, we can even see some of it, down here in the yellowing. That's when we want to say, hey, these are liver signs. These are indicators that the liver needs some support and that we need to pay attention to the liver. Now, in her case, this is very mild. I have seen irises where, there is so much brown in the sclera that, we definitely see that there's some heavy, toxins going on. The liver definitely needs some support and even maybe some possible failure there. So this is mild. This is considered mild, but something that can be addressed. And the good part about the sclera is when she starts addressing these issues, as she's being consistent with it, these will definitely lighten up. Even with the blood vessels, when we read the blood vessels, some blood vessels are really, really intense and red, you know what I mean? And as the person starts healing, they will lighten up. So the sclera is good to study, and a good area of study, because it's one area where you can see whether or not the individual is actually making some type of progress with their health without actually them telling you, or and so very, very interesting. So yeah, that's definitely sclerology is something I'm very interested in adding to, my tool bag, if you will. So now let's go to the her left iris. Uh, this one here. So let's go to the left iris, which we started off on. And again, we see the circulatory ring. We see the lipemic diathesis, that we saw in the right eye. So we're seeing that in both eyes. I would say the lipemic diathesis is more prominent in this eye here, the cloudiness that we're seeing around the edge. So we also see let me get my arrows. We also see the radial furrows, that we saw in the other eye. So, we're talking again about the parasites, the potential for those parasites, and different things like that. So the parasite cleanse we want to talk about. But in this iris here, we also want to look at 4 o'clock. Now remember, we saw the collarette crypt, and we were talking about the digestive area and the intestine. But we also, right at that same area, we see this radial furrow. So we see this radial furrow here at round about the same thing, 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock in the left iris, that radial furrow is in the spleen area, the spleen and the pancreas. This is the pancreas and this is the spleen area. So again, we're looking at blood. We're looking at the need for a blood cleanse. So going back to the initial brown eye hematogenic potential tendencies of having blood disorders, we're looking at spleen, we're looking at pancreas, so we definitely want to, pay attention and nurture those areas. Now we also see the defect signs. So defect signs are just smaller, crypts, lacunas, and they're just, darker and a little deeper. So we see those. We can see those here. Let me get the square instead. We can see those here in, zones 6 and 7. Remember, we're talking the zones 1 through 7. This is zone 6 and 7. That is the lymphatic and the skin zone. So when we see these black little crypts and openings there, again, she has, a pretty resilient, iris. She didn't have a lot of openings, but when we got out here to the lymphatic and the skin zones, we see that there can be some issues there. Now, we see this dealing with the skin zone, but we also can relate it to the liver, because this can be a sign that the liver needs some attention and that it may not be eliminating toxins, wherein, oil can overproduce and clog her pores. Now, based off a visual observation of this client, I saw that she has some acne. She indicated that she's dealt with acne for a big part of her life since she was younger, in her teens. So she has some acne, and she also said she has patches on her body where that she considers as eczema, some dry patches. So we see confirmation in this area because we see skin and we see, lymphatic. So, in my opinion, she's probably backed up lymphatically, which is starting to manifest through her skin. And this is an indication of that. So, another, confirmation of what we're seeing in the iris. And then back to over here. So here we see, if we're looking on the clock, this is about 7 o'clock in the iris. And this is another crypt, but this one is on the outside of the collarette. Even though it's right on the outside, it's on the opposite side of the collarette. So it is definitely on the outside, but it's around 7 o'clock. This area is the uterus area in the left eye. We saw signs. We saw the radial furrows in the right iris, in the uterus, in the right iris. They were in the uterus, and then the abdominal wall. Here we are in the uterus area of the left iris. So again, we see another sign, probably more confirmation about, the fibroid diagnosis she was given from her medical doctor. So, and also in this iris, we see some, a shoe lacuna. In this, now lacunas, there are so many different types of lacuna. But what we see here is a shoe lacuna. It looks like someone's footprint, like they just took a step in some mud or something. So this is considered a shoe lacuna. And with a shoe lacuna, because it's that type of lacuna, it is considered to have tendencies for kidneys kidney disorders. So when I see a shoe lacuna, I'm automatically thinking, okay, check the kidneys, ask questions about the kidneys. Now, the thing with this is we call this sign, because it's up here and not in the kidney area. This is the kidney region. We say that this sign is topolabile to the kidneys, meaning that no matter where this sign pops up in the iris, it will still always refer to the kidney. Now, this sign could very well be down here in the kidney area, and mean that it would be topostable, meaning it's stabilized in that kidney area. But because it's up here and it's, shoe lacuna, it still indicates, pay attention to the kidneys. Now, another thing to pay attention to here is that this shoe lacuna, if you notice, it is on the border of, this is where the collarette was intermittent. Remember, it was absent. But if we follow that line, we can follow the collarette. That shoe goes right through it. Okay. So that means this lacuna is on both sides. It's in the nutritive zone as well as the ciliary zone. So that means, being that it's touching and it's in the nutritive zone, it's dealing with more bowel, more confirmation that there's something going on in the bowels. There's some irritation, there's some inflammation. So that's another indication, an indicator, that, there's multiple things that, can go on when we look at some of these signs. But definitely get a kidney for, off the top. And then right over above that, we see these couple signs here and these couple markings. This is the area of the upper and lower jaw. Okay. So when I saw these and I asked her, hey, do you have any, mouth issues, or, did you have any dental work or something, injury to your mouth, your jaw? She said that her dentist told her the last time she visited that she clenches her teeth at night. So she has jaw clenching going on when she sleeps. She's clenching her jaws. Now think about that. Go back to the small collarette. This is an individual who's tight, who holds on to emotions, who holds on to her bowels. She's, so this is more of that. She's also manifesting this stress in her sleep. So this is a person we definitely want to suggest some relaxation methods, and help her to realize the need to to relax more, to de-stress in her life. So pretty much that's it, guys. I just wanted to go through this and show you how we kind of connect the dots, and how we analyze and we assess the iris, and what we use to see that. Oh, one more thing I did want to say, because when we talk about connecting those dots, with this shoe lacuna, because we were talking about the kidneys, this kidney indicator was confirmation was received when I looked at her blood work, because on her metabolic panel she had a level that was very high for her creatinine. Her creatinine levels were pretty high, and creatinine is a protein byproduct. Now we know that our kidneys have a very difficult time processing protein. We cannot process protein through our kidneys. So, and if they're not filtering properly, if we're seeing that there's some type of kidney issue, then that creatinine and that protein is building up. So this is definitely a sign, that we want to pay attention to the kidneys, because we see the kidney sign, and then we also got some confirmation through her CMP panel. So that's just, it's just amazing, again, how things come together like that. That's it, guys. I just kind of wanted to go through this iris and show you what I observed in this woman's eyes. And like I said, the confirmation that we receive and that we get from some of the things that we observe. And it's just an amazing modality. And I'm always learning and loving to learn. And so the more eyes that I look into, it just, we start seeing patterns, especially with the brown eye hematogenic. So we definitely want to pay attention to just those potential tendencies. Like I said, off the top, doing things that help us, circulate our blood, and, paying attention to our glandular, organs. definitely de-stressing. Like for this individual, she definitely needs to, learn to relax some. So I'm working with her on some suggestions and things that she can implement, just on a regular basis, to help her, start combating some of these issues that she's dealing with, and to actually, just kind of head off some that she may not be dealing with, that we may see just the genetic markers of. So thank you guys. I hope this helped. I hope it, is interesting to you as it is to me, to just see how we can, connect the dots through our health and wellness, through iridology. So again, have a great day, guys. Ashe.